Hi guys, welcome back to another video, this time a Vise restoration video, and we are going to restore these two big 6-inch Heuer Vises. The left one is one I found in the attic, I didn't even know I had it, and the right one you might remember from my Heuer Vise videos. So the left one, I had some weld spatter on top, I'm cleaning this up here, but otherwise it's in really good shape. The slide has no play actually, it's like mint, and it even has a dust cup, which I've never seen before. So I got these Vises before the COVID pandemic and everything has changed since then, so I want to get rid of these. And I'm cleaning them up a little bit so I can give them away without feeling bad about them. Also clean up the bearing drill here. There wasn't much damage done, so quite a simple cleanup, not much to it, and that's it. 1 year later I was still stuck with the Vises because the market is full of used Vises, so I decided to improve my odds by cleaning them up for real and painting them, even though it's probably gonna be more work than it's worth, but I enjoy doing that, so no problem there. So here I'm taking them apart, and once you've taken that many apart like I did, it's very easy. Just get the bearing balls out, take the bolt out, slide them apart, get the nut out, and you have them in pieces. Same for the other one. Bearing balls and the bolt, which gave me a little trouble here. And that's it. Time to clean these. Yeah. So I tend to scrape them down first because there's often some really stuck on dirt on, which you can easily get rid of. And especially inside the tube you have lots of dirt usually, like in this case, and some angle iron really works best to get this out. After scraping the dirt off, it's time for the parts washer, and I have only a small one, but it's enough. So I use some steel wool and a little bronze brush, which will come in handy later. And on the static jar you have often some dirt caked in right at the end of the slide. They are right there, so you need to be careful cleaning that up. But otherwise the static jar isn't much work. Now on the dynamic jar you have two areas that are a little bit hard to clean, which is the top of the slide. This is where the little brush comes in handy. And the other part is the inside of the tube, which if it's closed at the end like on this vise is really hard to clean. So I got my kitchen brush and just use this to clean inside the tube. Like stand it up, fill it full of washing fluid and then clean it like a glass or something similar. Works really well, you really get out all the gunk, which otherwise is really hard to get out. So one of the vises came with the dust cap, never seen before, so you probably see it the first time too. This is an original dust cap which is cracked from stress, I guess, and I decided to get it back into shape, like squeeze it and hammer it to get it round again. And I have this freezer chuck for drilling, and that works really well to hold it and press it and shape it. So I got it round in the end. So that's how it looks on the vise. Looks really good. Even had a felt ring for the cap, and yeah, looking good. But then I decided to solder it up. I found a thick piece of solder and I simply decided to close the gap, not even press it together, because I have no idea what I'm doing, never done that before, so I decided just fill the gap to make it look a little bit better, not put stress on it. So maybe I thought if I weld it with stress on it, it will tear apart later. So I'm simply filling the gap here somehow. And as I said, never done it before, but it seems to work with some trial and error. After that, cleaning up the weld a bit, making it look nice again with file, and that looks good. So on the inside I don't have a tab for that thread size, so I'm chiseling away all the extra solder there, and then I'm trying to cut in the threads by hand or even using the original counterpart to cut them back in. Ja. Then I decided to fill up some deep marks on the jaws and on the anvil. I didn't think about it, but of course the original steel hardens quite a bit when you do that, so it made cleaning up the welds a little bit harder because you can't really use files but have to use sanding. Here I'm verifying that the jars don't get too hot and damage the tempering, but they stayed cool, so let's continue welding. And I did all this welding with my new welder. I bought it used, but it's so much better than my old one. The old ones, the electrodes did want to stick and it didn't want to ignite, and this one works really well. And the slack is easily removed, so really happy about this one. Just wish I had bought it earlier, so I wouldn't have to do all the other projects with the crappy one. Then it was time for paint removal, and I'm using some brush-on paint remover, which isn't really healthy, but I'm doing it outside and I'm using gloves, triple gloves actually. And I usually use a shrink wrap foil underneath. So first it protects everything from drops, and then you can wrap the shrink wrap around the object you are trying to remove the paint from, so the paint stripper doesn't evaporate but stays on the object and can do its job. If the paint stripper worked well, you can simply scrape off the paint. Sometimes you have to do it twice because sometimes there's a really stubborn primer underneath, but there wasn't much paint left on these two vises anyways, and there was no stubborn primer, so I'm just using a spatula and some steel wool to scrape off any paint, and then you just need to wash it and you're done. Then it was time for weld cleanup, and as I mentioned before, that the original steel gets really hard from welding, and I'm just noticing that here by ruining my file there, which wasn't so good. But I kind of noticed that I can't file this anymore, so I can still use a file to file down the weld itself, but once we reach the layer of original steel, it gets impossible to file it, and I had to switch to some grinding devices. Let's clean up a little bit of minor nicks. So I'm not gonna do any flashing, keep it original, but there's some think damages that happened over time. So I'm just gonna go over it with the file. Nothing major, just a little bit polish, more or less, kind of polish with a file. So, that's done. So that is as much as I want to. That is as much as I want to do. It's gonna get painted anyway, so now I have 3 more to do, I guess. I always clean up the anvil. It looks so much better if you de-mushroom it. It kinda looks original, because originally they didn't have a mushroom shape. That is just from hammering on the anvil. It's not easy to do because it's a kinda narrow part there, but with some hard work you can get it in a really good shape. Little piece there, that's gonna be not easy. So yeah, completely de-mushroomed. Just needs the top made nice again, and everything's done. Then it was time to clean up the top a little, and going sideways like I'm doing it here is not good. It's better if you go from the front to the back to keep the nice round shape that is on them originally. If you go sideways you probably make them flatter, and that's not what you want, so going front to back like right now is the better way to do it. And I wasn't really happy with how the anvil turned out. It wasn't really 100% flat, and I couldn't file it as I mentioned earlier, so I'm using a belt sander to carefully get everything flat on the anvil. It took a while because the belt sander overheated quite a lot, because it's just such a short belt, but the result looks really nice. And some wire wheeling for paint preparation. Just trying out a speed up adapter for a drill. It triples the drill speed. Trying this out with a wire wheel here. painting time. I don't like painting time because you have to mask off everything. So that's what I did here. It takes a while to mask off everything, and I don't really like that part of the whole thing. The painting not so much, but the masking is really time consuming. So let's soldier through it and then let's start painting. I used some spray-on filler primer, which didn't really fill anything, so that wasn't really the best primer at all. And then I'm using some hammer paint. For the first coat I used some gray metallic hammer paint, which I didn't really like in the end. So for the second coat I switched to green for one of the vises, hammer green, and a really dark coal gray for the other one. While the paint was drying, it was time to clean all the loose bits, like the bolts and the nuts and the screws, using my buffer here with a wire wheel to clean everything up. And of course there was some filing to do to get rid of some burrs and some spatter and everything, just to make everything look really nice. Just a little cleanup at the end here. Yeah, since this is cut, it's not cut straight, so that thread starts here, so we need to fix that one too, because this is not so good either. Yeah, that looks good. That looks really good. This babe, I don't know. So let's still test it. Now, there was a problem getting this on before. You really had to have it straight. Now we don't both 180 degrees opposite and not like next to each other, because this is cut on an angle. It's not straight, it's like so, not so. So that's the problem. And we fixed that, and now, yeah. Now we just need to fix the nut. Yes, you can just cut them off. Like that. Threads cleaned up. At least it's not dangerous anymore to handle this thing. So I can put my finger through it without it starting to bleed because I cut myself. So shiny. So yeah, now it's polished. So just need to reassemble it. So before reassembling it, I cleaned it up from remains of the masking tape and some little paint that made its way at places it shouldn't be. I used a polishing pad and that really cleaned it up really nice. And for the vase I used the wire wheel, and if you hold it like that, it really cleans up the vase without damaging the paint. The vase also had some paint where it shouldn't be, so I'm just using a knife to clean them up, get all the paint off where it shouldn't be, and it's quite easy because it's all corners there, so you can't really cut somewhere where you shouldn't. So quite easy, just a little bit of time. Stopping here, still sitting there. Yeah, it's hitting the paint, yeah. Then it turned out that the dynamic jaw rubbed on the paint, so I had to remove some metal from the outer edge there, carefully filing it off on both sides. So I touched both up, both sides. I hope that is low enough now. Otherwise that was in vain. I was stupid. I should have done this first, check and then paint it. Yeah, that was stupid. But we will see. We'll see tomorrow. And the final day arrived. Just putting everything back together. The paint is dry. The fix helped with the rubbing, so both vises are now ready for reassembly. The current me would use a little bit more grease with the bearing balls and on the lead screw, but it's enough grease in there and the bearing isn't really like on a wheel, so it's enough grease in there, but I would probably use a little bit more nowadays. And it's also better to put the screw in a bit further in, so there is no pocket where a bearing ball can get stuck. Because the slide is a little bit worn out on this vise, it gets tight near the end, so I had to loosen the bolt there a little bit so it opens all the way. Of course it's a little bit loose in the middle then, but that's how it is if the slide is a little bit worn out. For the second vise I recut the thread there because some paint got in, cleaned that out with some air, and then I also had to put the lead screw in differently like with the first vise because I had to put on the dust cap first and I couldn't grease it before doing that, so I greased it after putting it in. since the slide on this vise is in mint condition, there wasn't much to adjust. You just set one setting and it worked for the front to the back. Just putting on some grease here as rust prevention. And that's it. I also did make new washers for both vises, but I have no footage of that. So that was quite an easy restoration, just cleaning it up. The dust cap and the washers were a little bit more complicated, but otherwise quite a simple one. So here are some before pictures, and that's how they look now. I think they turned out quite well, and I kinda should have kept the black one, but I already have a different one I want to keep, so these two had to go. The green one actually went to a local car shop and joined the workforce again, and the dark one went to a collector and is probably now in a display case. So yeah, that's all about these two vises, and there are more to come, and see you next time.